All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get her going here. Start me off. Where to bid to go? Have it $1,000. Open it up.
For sale by owner, this is the process. Welcome back. Lots of people want to sell their property and they want to save 5 or 6%. So what happens? They become a for sale by owner. And that's what we're going to talk about because a lot of people don't want to pay the broker a commission. So they become for sale by owner, FSBO. All right, that's not unusual. All of you have seen the signs. Sounds easy. It's not easy, I can assure you. Now, my name is Ted Thomas. I've been involved in real estate, not the traditional real estate, for the past 30 years. Now, my expertise is in a subset of the traditional real estate, so I view everything through that lens. Now, these properties that I'm going to talk about are tax defaulted property. Now, what is a tax defaulted property? It's the same as traditional real estate where it might be homes, could be vacant residential lots, could be small apartments, small farms, maybe even small office buildings. However, these are tax defaulted. That means the property owner has not paid the property tax, and now the properties are going to be auctioned by the county. So in all 50 states, the legislature, they govern the state and they manage the state, and they've created laws and written them into the books. The books are called statute books. Now, these laws apply to all property owners, and it's pretty simple. All property owners are mandated and required to pay property tax. And if they don't pay the property tax, there's definitely going to be some consequences. Now, once again, my lens of this business is through the eyes of a tax defaulted buyer. So that's where I make my living. I've done that for the last 30 years. I'll try to give you some insight on how to sell these properties. Now, for sale by owner has been traditional. It's been around for decades. A lot of people have a challenge with this. I'll tell you about the challenges, and I'll give you ways to solve them relatively quickly. All right, so I've made a business of tax defaulted property, and what we do is we sell those properties ourselves. Now, why do we do that? Well, because most traditional real estate people, they're so busy doing traditional real estate, they don't really get involved with tax defaulted real estate. So it involves the same real estate. It's just this business. We're buying our properties at bargain prices at tax defaulted auction.
How about to go there? How about to go there? How about to go where? How about to go here? How about to go here? How about now? How about to go?
All right, these people have defaulted on their property tax. So what happens? The county tells the treasurer, sell the property. Well, what the treasurer has to do is they have to give multiple notices of default to the property owner. Now, if the property owner ignores those notices of default, then they'll levy against the property. That allows them to confiscate the property, resell it for 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar. Now, these properties all have a tax assessed value. The treasurer will sell the property 60 or 70 or even 80% below the tax assessed value. All right, these are people that have ignored many notices of default, and now their property is actually going to end up being forfeited to the local county. The county doesn't want the property. So what they do is the treasurer cancels the mortgage or the deed of trust loan, and then will sell the property to the highest bidder, generally starting the bidding at the auction at 10 or 20 or 30 cents on the dollar. Now, all of these properties are used and abused. Now, some of them are absolutely junk. Don't buy the junk. Many properties just need paint and cleanup. You'll decide that by looking and checking the property. All right, now the majority of real estate professionals are not involved in this business. This is one you have to learn for yourself. But if you're a bargain hunter, this is going to work perfectly. All right, now who else is a bargain hunter? Well, the same people that buy at tax defaulted auctions are the people that are doing for sale by owner, FSBO. Now, what they're trying to do is they're trying to save a 5 or 10% commission. All right, so these are entrepreneurs trying to sell their property. It's not as easy as it sounds. Now, if the market's real hot, maybe you can sell it quickly, but you have to clean your house up a lot of times because people just show up because they drive by and they see the sign and they want to come in and see the property. All right, with tax defaulted property, we have plenty of time because we can go to the auction and we can view the properties ahead of the auction. All right, so this business requires a little bit of business savvy. By that I mean, if you're going to be a for sale by owner, you need to think this out. How are you going to sell this property? Well, first of all, you're going to have to follow the rules of whatever it is in those counties. And when you're going to do that, you're going to have to make sure you clean the property up. You're going to have to make sure it looks half decent. And then you're going to have to get used to the looky-loos walking through your freshly cleaned property, and a lot of those people aren't too nice to you while they do that. So don't underestimate, like most people do, the business of marketing. Now, most entrepreneurs are not good marketers, and that's why it takes them a long time to sell a property. This simple blunder can make the difference between a seller being successful and unsuccessful. You need to think about what you're going to do on selling the property. So this episode is all about for sale by owner, okay, FSBO. So what does that mean? Well, most people fail at this because they don't take care of doing all the basic things to sell a property. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you need to do a lot of things. You probably want to use eBay. You probably want to use Craigslist. You probably want to think about the multiple listing service. You probably want to think about Facebook Marketplace. Now, those are just a few. You don't want to just put one sign in front of the property and hope you sell it. You want to put them in the neighborhood. You want to actually be in the marketing business to let people know that this property is for sale. How else could you do that? Could you put it in the newspaper? Could you go to the real estate clubs and tell them about it? All right, these are all bargain hunters, and that's what people look. They look in the newspaper, they look online. You need to let the world know that this property is for sale. Okay, most people don't do that, all right? And because they don't do that, they struggle. They get people that just drive by and see the for sale sign, and here they are banging on the front door. You don't want to let them get away because you hope this is the buyer. So what are you trying to do? You're trying to clean your house up at the last minute and get ready. You don't get a chance to watch the football game or finish your dinner because there they are. All right, so I suggest you think about media. All right, media will bring more buyers to that property. Now, we're in the tax defaulted business. We know that if we don't use multimedia to get people to the property, if we're not doing that, we're going to struggle month to month trying to get rid of that property, and we'll only make a fraction of the amount of money we should make. Why? Because we haven't got enough buyers to come to the property. In this episode, I'll show you people that actually make the deal on the hood of a car because they buy a tax defaulted property at the right price, and then they use multimedia to let everybody know that that property is for sale. Then when people show up, they're ready to make a deal. Why are they ready? Because they planned it, and that's what it takes. So if you're going to be a for sale by owner, you need to give this a little bit of thought. All right, so my students like this because what happens? They have a lot of people coming to them rather than them trying to go out and find the clients. All right, now, if you're going to find good deals, you can find them at the tax defaulted auction. So let me tell you a little bit about that business. It's available in all 3,000 counties across the United States. And what's happened? People haven't paid their property tax. So the government takes action, they confiscate the property, and then they resell it at a tax defaulted auction.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get her going here. Start me off. Where to bid to go? Have it like $1,000. Open it up.
Now, all these properties have an appraised value. That's called an assessed value by the treasurer. All right, now, that treasurer and tax collector have a value on the property, but they're sold 60%, 70%, and 80% less than that because the government wants to motivate buyers. They want to get rid of the property. The local government does not want tax defaulted property. They want the property off the tax defaulted list and on the honorable tax roll list. So to do that, they discount it. They sell starting bid the back taxes. All right, there's going to be hundreds of these properties in all the counties across the United States. All right, when I say hundreds, I really should say 1,000. Some counties will have hundreds. Across the United States, there'll be over 2 million of these properties. All right, now the low price of these tax defaulted property attracts what kind of people? It's going to attract the people that want to buy properties and then flip them quickly. It's also going to attract the fixer-upper people. In other words, those guys and gals, they are handy with tools and know what to do. It also attracts the renovators. Well, what do? Well, they want to take basic, mediocre property and make them look like mansions. These are the people you see redoing properties on television sometimes. They're knocking down walls with sledgehammers, new concrete, new roof, new this. They want the property to really look pretty good. All right, so you're getting the idea. So how are you going to attract these people? You do that with marketing. So you need to let the world know that you have a property for sale. It's the same thing with for sale by owner. You need to let the world know that that property is available. All right, there's another buyer for this property that most people pass up. I found by looking at tax defaulted auction lists that 20 to 25% of all the people that want to buy, well, guess what? they've got bad FICO scores. In other words, bad credit scores. Well, what if you could sell to those people using a contract of sale and you are willing to take payments, installment payments? Well, there's about 20% of the market is really interested in your property because maybe they've been through a bankruptcy. Well, maybe they had a divorce. Maybe they had some crisis in their life. But they've got a good job and they can make their payments. So you don't want to pass up that part of the market. All right, so you're kind of getting what I'm talking about. Plan on a ton of criticism if you're a for sale by owner. Because these people are going to walk through your house and it's going to get emotional for you because you love the place that you're living in and they're going to have all kinds of things to say. Oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. They're very frank people. They walk through and they might walk through a dozen houses and they're not nice about it. Don't get upset about that, but a lot of people are going to walk through that property, and that's why for sale by owner is difficult if you don't have a lot of people coming under a controlled environment to your property. If they just show up and they want to look, that's going to be an emotional experience. Okay. Now, folks, massive marketing is what it's really going to take. Now, I'm about to run out of time, but I wanted to tell you ahead of time. You see those little white circles? That's how many auctions are taking place within that state in the next 90 days. This calendar updates every single day. I'm here today to show you how to make money. To do that, I'm going to show you briefly that there are thousands of tax defaulted real estate properties across the 3,000 plus counties in the United States. This is quite interesting. You're looking at the Ted Thomas Magic Interactive Map and Auction Calendar. It changes every day. Now, I created the calendar and the map so I would know how many auctions are taking place every day in the United States. Now I can show the little guy how to make money. Most importantly, I created this system so I could have an auction list for each auction 24/7. The small population counties, they'll have dozens, maybe hundreds of properties to sell at these tax defaulted auctions. All right, the large population counties, they will have hundreds and even thousands of properties to sell at tax defaulted auctions. If you'd like to know where the auctions are located and how many are located, go right below me and we'll get you that information. I'm Ted Thomas. I'll see you on the next video. Don't forget, request your free auction list right below me.